Welcome to another episode of Two Old Men in Chairs. I'm Corrin Strong.
I'm Howard Appel.
And today we're going to do our third Bob Dylan song, but we're going to jump ahead a couple decades. The previous two were back in the 60s. We did Masters of War and Subterranean Homesick Blues. But this one is, we're going to do Clean Cut Kid off of the Empire Burlesque album, which I think was early 80s. And but actually, we're going to do an alternate take off of the Bootleg, one of the Bootleg,
Volume 13.
Volume 13. And Howard and I have been debating a little bit about which songs we should do, which are appropriate for this channel, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that we want to do songs that have a message that resonates today with the issues that we're facing politically and socially. And, not all Bob Dylan songs qualify for that. A lot of his songs
are very personal.
Love songs. They're great songs, but they don't have a lasting political message. But those are not the songs we're doing. This one here, Clean Cut Kid, very, very relatable message, I think, to rip, as we say, rip from today's headlines. Like in the last couple months, we've had young kids, one very near us here near Buffalo, go into a supermarket and kill 10 black people. Another young boy down in Texas went into a primary school and killed how many? 20, 30?
17 or two teachers or something. I don't know.
20 approximately. A lot of times when that happens, they'll go and they'll interview the neighbors. And they'll say, "Oh, I never would have seen that coming. He was a clean-cut kid." Sometimes they have psychological problems that people are aware of. But sometimes they come out of nowhere. They're very secretive, and even their parents don't realize what they're planning to do.
Adjust to what? A dream that birthday was a clean-cut kid. But they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
Everyone's wondering why he couldn't adjust. Adjust to what? Everything was a bust.
It's a great,
That's like haiku. That is so perfectly framed. And he was a clean-cut kid, and they made a killer out of him. That's what they did.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you could also relate this possibly to a person who went into the army and was trained to be a killer and then came out.
The they can be more nebulous. Sometimes the they is a very explicit group of people. Sometimes the they might be the whole constellation of society.
And I think Dylan's going for a broader view in this song.
They say what's up is down, they say what isn't is. They put ideas in his head, he thought were his. They took a clean-cut kid, but they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
And I hate to stop it on every verse, but that was another perfect verse. He said, what's up was down, what isn't is, and they put ideas in his head that he thought were his. And isn't that exactly what this psychological warfare that we're enduring right now? We're told
what we've been doing to our young people for the last maybe 20 to 40 years.
However you count it, we're constantly fed a steady diet of lies. And
Up was down.
and they put ideas in your head, and you think they're yours, but they're not. They're ideas that are being planted for a reason.
Yeah, it's interesting. This was written in the mid-'80s. He doesn't have any idea what's coming down the pike, but that's just shows Dylan's gift for prophecy, maybe.
Yeah, he's like an Old Testament prophet for sure.
Clean-cut kid, but they made a killer out of him, that's what they did. He was on the baseball team, he was in the
Boy Scout. He went to
Yeah,
church
he
every
was just
Sunday.
the ideal American youth. He really was. He was a little entrepreneur.
He had a watermelon stand.
Yes, amazing. It's like I said, the idea.
He probably grew those watermelons that Topher was eating in the last video.
I don't know. It makes me, sometimes I didn't appreciate Dylan so much of the '80s, but now I come back to this is as good as anything he's ever done.
Well, and what it really speaks to is that despite all of those institutions like the Boy Scouts and church and everything that we think are going to create good character, there's something rotten. There's something rotten in the core of the society that you could take a person who's been through all that and make a killer out of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, what happened to all that training? Thou shalt not kill.
Right. I mean, and there is the pronoun. There's the they. It's an act of something. Somebody is making him a killer. And what you're talking about is who is this they? What is this they? Maybe it's a what, not a who.
Well, again, it reminds me of John Lennon, and maybe we should be doing some John Lennon, but we probably have copyright problems. But he says there's room at the top if you're willing to smile while you kill. He's talking about a society that turns people into killers.
Yeah, prim and proper as it may portray itself.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, as you suggest, that that type of aggression is maybe valued, for certain purposes in society.
Yeah.
I made it through 2 verses that time without stopping. It was hard, but let's see how long we can last.
He would turn his pockets inside out because the clean-cut kid. And they made a killer out of him is what they did. They said, listen, boy, you just a pup. They sent him to a napalm health spa to shape up. They gave him dope to smoke. They gave him drinks and pills. A tape to drive. They gave him blood to spill. They said, congratulations, you got what it takes. They sent him back into the rat race without any breaks. He was a clean-cut kid. And they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
So that was a little more specific. There he really is talking about a soldier, I think, who was trained to kill. Mm-hmm. And then sent back into the rat race without any breaks.
The dope might be given to you by your fellow soldiers, your buddies at college or whatever. And
Yeah.
He uses the term rat race, which to my mind is synonymous with Tom McDonald's system. That is the rat race. And maybe it is the rat race, which is this corrupting influence after all.
Yeah, and of course, if anything, in the last 40 years, the whole problem of drug abuse has gotten even worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, we would love to go back to early 80s in terms of, drug abuse was fairly mild. Because what we've seen since then,
Yeah. Well, look at the suicide numbers, yeah. Or not
Crack,
suicide, but death and
cocaine,
overdose numbers too.
Heroin, speed, pain pills.
This is so damn perceptive. I'm getting a new appreciation of the song even right now as we listen to it.
Yeah. So one thing the reactions do, it tends to focus your mind on the message, and this is a very strong message.
And they made a killer out of him, that's what they did. He got the American dream, but it was all wet. The only game he knew was Russian roulette. He drank Coca-Cola, eating Wonder Bread. He ate Burger Kings, he was well fed. He went to Hollywood to see Peter O'Toole. He stole a Rolls Royce and drove it in a swimming pool. The clean-cut kid. And they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
There he's talking about he went to Burger King, so he was well fed. I don't think,
I
I think that was a little sarcastic.
And I never heard the American dream described as wet, but here he
It's
makes
all
this
wet. A wet dream. And then there was some story about somebody driving a Rolls Royce in a swimming pool, but I can't remember what it was. But I think that was based on a real incident. No, he's got the whole decadence. And let's remember, this is when Dylan was just coming out of his Jesus period.
Yeah.
Late 70s, early
The
80s.
Shot of Love was kind of a mixed album, and then the Empire Burlesque.
Yeah. And
Not
so
downloaded.
a little bit of fire and brimstone here, a little bit of damnation for all of these sins of our society, the pills, the drinking.
Well, it's corrupting influences because of, without, there's this idea where we'd all be pretty decent people, and now we're murderers.
And they made a killer out of him, that's what they did. He could have sold insurance, owned a bakery or bar. Could have been an accountant on a tennis star. He was wearing boxing gloves, he took a dive one day off the Golden Gate Bridge into China Bay. His mama weeps and cries, his daddy cries and moans. They sleep together in a home they don't own. They took a clean-cut kid and they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
He could have been an accountant.
Yeah, like that's the greatest thing in the world.
Oh man.
Yeah, really a lot here. Classic Dylan, and it just goes to show that he never really stopped being.
He never lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going on 60 years and he's still. Now, I just want to mention that we've had requests to do the song off his most recent album, Murder Most Foul.
Yeah. Well,
the JFK song.
Yeah.
But I don't have the heart to do it. It's too close to the bone. Well, before we move on to the rest of the song, because we just went kind of through an instrumental break there, the production is fantastic.
Dylan. There's a certain raggedness which is Dylan to the piano and the female chorus and everything. It's a little raggedness, but I always like that. It's the same raggedness
I
here.
don't hear it as ragged. I think it's planned that way.
Well, it's.
I mean, he doesn't like doing a lot of rehearsal. He's like, okay,
that's exactly what I mean.
Let's do it.
It wouldn't be as good if they tightened up.
Yeah, but he's got all kinds of instrumentation in here. I mean, the guitar is great.
There's two or three female voices.
And he got the choir behind him, and he's got a piano in there and some drums and bass, and it's hot.
And they made a killer out of him, that's what they did. While the rest can read now what he couldn't adjust. All he ever wanted was somebody to trust. They said what up was down, what isn't this? They put ideas in his head that he thought were his. He was on a baseball team, he was in a marching band. When he was 10 years old, he had a watermelon stand. But they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
Now, I just wonder, Howard, he repeated a whole verse there.
Yeah.
But did the final version do that? Maybe, when he went to the final edition, he didn't feel the need to say them twice. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll check that out and report.
He went to church on Sunday, he was a Boy Scout. For his friends, he would turn his pockets inside out. He took a clean-cut kid, and they made a killer out of him, that's what they did.
When we were kids, we knew this clean-cut kid. He was somebody that was on a career track to have a lot more wealth and a lot more status than I had, it seemed. And like I said, I knew kids like that, didn't you?
Yeah, there were kids, in high school that, big man on campus, they had it all. They had the prettiest girlfriend.
Yeah.
And
they weren't necessarily all jocks, but they were perfect.
They seemed to be perfect.
Yes.
On the outside, but those were the ones that kind of later on crumbled.
Yeah.
And had problems later in life.
Yeah, and I can think of specific cases. I probably shouldn't mention them, but yeah.
No, you shouldn't.
Maybe we're just rationalizing that we kind of had a more ragged path than these kids. Maybe they are all rich professionals today with trophy wives. Who knows?
Some may be, but I know from having gone to my 50th high school reunion a few years back that some of the kids that you thought were really going to set the world on fire ended up doing not that much. And some of the ones that you thought were total nerds, you know, turned out to really have it together. So high school is not really a fair judge on people's potential. In fact, people that don't do well in organized school oftentimes go out.
Yeah, sometimes an indicator that they will do well in real world.
Yeah, it means they think independently and they cannot be brainwashed and schooled.
Yeah.
There's a reason they use that word, schooled. It's like a school of fish. They want everyone thinking the same and moving the same. So it reminds me of Sympathy for the Devil. The Rolling Stones shouted out, "Who killed the Kennedys?" When after all, it was you and me.
Yeah.
So that idea that, you know, we're all in this together and we can't shirk responsibility. It kind of brings us full circle. You know, I spoke in the beginning about the clean-cut kids that went out and became mass murderers.
Mm-hmm.
And people can say, well, how did it happen? Whose fault was it? Well, it's everybody's fault. It's society's fault for allowing the conditions to exist that breed that sort of thing.
I mean, the violence of video games. Maybe that's not the sole cause, but that's out there.
That's a cause. All these drugs that a lot of these kids are on.
That some are prescribed.
That make them super aggressive and prone to do violent things. Nobody looks into that, but most of these mass killers are on some kind of psychological medications. None of us can totally absolve ourselves and say, well, we didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
That was just some crazy kid.
Kind of goes back to what I was saying in the earlier video. We're not that far along in civilization that we can revert back to this type of vicious individual personality. A lot of us are always doing that and are killing our fellow man. It's way too common.
I think it was said somewhere that there's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say one more thing that I think is important, because we consider ourselves as, you know, you consider yourself a pretty decent guy. I consider myself a pretty decent guy. But with what's been going on over the last few years, especially in the last couple of years, I've been having feelings of a level of hatred and anger that I hadn't felt before, and I'm thinking maybe I could be that clean-cut kid. I mean, sometimes what I think I'd like to do to the people that are.
I'm glad you warned me, Howard.
Well, seriously, maybe I could flip, and then the song would be about me. I don't know if you've ever felt that degree of level of anger, but to me those feelings are new. I mean, burning anger over what's been going on in this.
I sense it sometimes when you're talking on camera. I can see it. I can see it burning in you. But I'm more phlegmatic, I guess would be the term. Some things tick me off, and I can get going. But no, I don't get that white hot anger and hatred. Maybe I should. You know, maybe it'd be better if I did. Because, I mean, some of the things that are being done to us.
What's been going on in the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's been going on to us is just unacceptable. And more of us should fight back. I tried to fight back, you know, through the legal process by bringing my federal lawsuit, by, you know, going to demonstrations, you know, doing something, you know, not just, I think if you just sit, you know, in your cabin in the woods and don't do anything about it, maybe, you know, that can build up inside of you.
So hopefully it'll never happen to me. But by what's going on, I can understand the process. You can feel that degree of emotion.
We're all human, and we can all be pushed to our limit and beyond and break. You know, and it's probably easier for me to like be a little bit relaxed and copacetic about things because I've been privileged. I haven't had the type of negative things that a lot of people go through. So that's probably why I'm more relaxed about things that maybe I shouldn't be so relaxed about.
But maybe that makes us a good pair. I don't know.
Definitely. I think there's a good interchange here with different points of view, and I'm a little disappointed that you weren't a little more angry at the revolution. I was hoping you would really go on.
No, I say I mellowed to that because I feel bad for him because my revolution didn't work and his didn't either.
Revolutions rarely work, and when they do, people live to regret them for the most part.